Welcome to Virteva's Let's Talk Roadmap Rundown, the show where we talk through the latest updates, enhancements, and features coming soon to Microsoft 365. It's Tuesday, June 4th, 2024, and on this week's edition, we'll be talking about a new start experience coming to Microsoft SharePoint, updates to Microsoft Search to include Viva Engage, and a few new updates coming to Microsoft Teams. Before we get into the news for the week, we'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment out of your time to hit those like, subscribe, and share buttons, or share the content with your friends and colleagues. Over the past few weeks, we've been seeing our watch and subscriber numbers going up, and we appreciate everyone's helping us get over that 150 mark on YouTube. Also appreciate all the healthy sharing we've been getting on the audio-only content on our Podbean stream for podcast listeners. That recently has also crossed 2,300 listens, and we've really only been doing this for a year, so we're seeing good channel growth as time's been going on. Holly, welcome back to the show. We gave you a couple of weeks off there. I gave myself a week off last week. But yeah, excited to have a partner on the show again this week, so it's not just me reading at a screen. Also excited. We're actually planning on recording two podcasts this week. I'm doing another one on Wednesday with Christopher Strong to look over the Microsoft Build announcements that happened a couple of weeks back. Really excited myself to talk through the privacy related concerns on the new recall feature coming to these new devices. But that's not what we're here for today. Today, we are here to talk about Message Center and roadmap announcements. So let me take us over to the first screen and then we'll start moving.
Excellent.
All right. So first one up for review here is a new start experience for Microsoft SharePoint Online. A new SharePoint start experience is coming to SharePoint Online, simplifying site page creation. This is going to begin rolling out early this month and is expected to be completed by the end of the month. There's no action required on behalf of admins, but overall, what this is really meant to do is just kind of take that ugly SharePoint start page that you go to and make it look a little bit more kind of like website friendly content.
Yeah.
Now, just to clarify too, this isn't replacing the build a new site. Like all of that, the templatization, the lookbook stuff, that's still going to look the same. This is really just that SharePoint landing site that you first go to.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of screenshots here, so I'll kind of show those here in a moment.
Yeah, this is a long overdue facelift for the SharePoint landing page. For those of you that have been using SharePoint Online for a long time, you know that the current or previous experience when you click on SharePoint from either your Microsoft 365 homepage, whether you're starting at the SharePoint homepage, it's pretty drab and I think not very widely used. So I think hopefully this update will make the page not only look better, but a heck of a lot more useful for those of us that are dabbling more and more in SharePoint and Teams.
Yeah, and just kind of browsing through here and looking at a couple of the different screenshots that they have. So I'm actually sitting on my demo tenant's SharePoint start page right now, and I'll actually pop the menu out over here. Is that this is kind of what it would look like, and there's not a lot there. It's weird. It's a weird experience to go to and just kind of see like these blocks of sites you've been to or sites that you favorited. Again, the changes to this are really to make it look almost more like an actual SharePoint page, but not quite there. So you're going to see news from your different sites. You're going to see previews. You'll see kind of that same kind of like tabular list on the left-hand side. But really overall this looks like the same direction that they started taking the new OneDrive experience, where they want it to feel more like a splashy go-to page rather than just, hey, we kind of dumped all your stuff here. Hope you like it.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe the current SharePoint landing page is very much kind of like a storage closet. You open it up and you're like, what do I really need this for? What am I doing here? And I think you're right that the OneDrive, for those of us who have been using OneDrive Online for a long time, you notice that got all sorts of great updates, smart lists, things like that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if SharePoint can start building those kind of smart filters and things like that on that landing page. It's long overdue and I'm super happy about it.
Yep, excited for this one as well. And again, it's going to be rolling out this month and should be completed by the end of the month. All right, so next one up here is we're going to be talking about results in workplace search for Microsoft Viva Engage. Those are going to start popping up. So if you're using Yammer or you're using Engage, it's been rebranded. Today, when you go to kind of like portal.office.com or SharePoint.com, you don't really ever see any content come through from your Engage community. So one of the changes Microsoft is going to begin making in July 2024 and plans to finish rolling out in August is basically, if you have content there, if it's publicly accessible, or if you have access to see it, is it's going to feed into your search experience
Hmm.
just like anything else. And this is almost kind of like very similar to the Copilot experience. If you have it in your environment today, is you can see what you have access to, and it's just kind of broadening the reach here. So
Right.
there's not a whole lot to share on this one outside of one screenshot. But it basically, so if you were a member of an artificial intelligence community over on Engage, is it would just show up along with any of your other files, filters. You can see it kind of showing up here as well
Right.
in the tabs at the top,
Right.
which is helpful. I think it'll be interesting too. And you can't really see this from the screenshot, but will you be able to? So you have the filters here. Will you actually be
Yep.
able to filter just down to the Engage content if that's all you wanted to see there on the
Yep.
office.com homepage?
Yeah, I think this is going to be really helpful. So I work with a few groups that have really healthy, thriving, previously Yammer communities and now into Viva Engage. And you're absolutely right. That is it's data in your tenant. You couldn't really search for it before unless you were just searching within the context of Viva Engage. So now you can produce results there. Again, will it be bringing things, you know, super relevant to your search terms and keyword terms? If you have a healthy and thriving engaged community and people do use Microsoft 365 search at the homepage, again, that content is now inside of your search results. Might mean your search results are a little noisier, but as Scott shown, you can filter across the top. You can say only show me engaged stuff or let me see everything. And if you do search engage, if you want to search your engaged communities, you can go to that context and then you can filter by date or group, whatever it is. I think this is good. I mean, half the people, I will say, working in a training context, when I show people that you can go to Microsoft365.com and when you're signed in, you can search through everything that you have access to from that one search bar. And that includes your chats, your emails, your team posts, all that stuff. People are typically amazed just by that. And now we're adding engage posts into the mix.
And you can't do this today in Teams as of yet, right? So,
Teams has started to include OneDrive results,
yeah,
but Teams is not the full Microsoft search experience. I believe it really isn't. This, I think, is the most comprehensive version of it because it searches through every context that
yep.
you have in Microsoft 365 versus Teams. I still think is very Teams centric.
Yeah, you can do
So
files, group chats, Teams, and channels, it looks like
yeah,
right now. There is a Viva app or for Teams that you could include, but you can't search it today, probably
yeah.
unless you actually went into the app. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. And this is a little off topic for the Message Center announcement, but I would expect that as time goes on, we'll probably see this same feature roll out in that direction as well.
I mean, I would even say think of all of the things that we still aren't getting search results for necessarily. Things like planner comments or something like that. So I think of this as, hey, even if you don't have an engaged community and you're thinking maybe this isn't as relevant to me, I look at it always as if you read the tea leaves and you see Microsoft signaling that anywhere that we're storing data for you and your tenant, we're working to bring that context to search. So maybe it's not engaged that you're hoping for, but there's other services that you want those search results coming in. Hopefully,
Yep.
Microsoft is working on it for us.
Yeah, I think that'll be awesome. I can't wait for that to happen. So I don't have to go into two different, three different, four different
Yeah,
locations to find
exactly.
things.
One search to rule them all.
Yep.
That's the goal.
All right. So speaking of Microsoft Teams, let's roll on to the next announcement here. Message Center 797474 and Roadmap ID 79397883. Teams will soon introduce channel cards providing an overview of a channel, including its description, activity, team name, and membership. They'll appear on desktop and web by hovering over channel names. to offer quick access to settings and management. The rollout for this is going to begin in July 2024 and should be
Mm-hmm.
completed by the end of the month. There's not an incredibly ton of information that you can really pull from this. There's no screenshots,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So my harebrained idea of what I expect to kind of see out of this is I'm
Yeah.
just going to hover my mouse over a channel and then it's going to tell me a little bit more about it. And I mean, this is going to become one of those things. So if you are an owner of a team today and you're
Mm-hmm.
setting up channels and you're not putting descriptions in place, there you're not going to get a ton of value out of this feature. So if you want people to be able to better understand what is this channel actually used for without having to click in and read through a bunch of different threads, you're going to want to start managing the creation and just overall kind of ownership of those channels. So it's a little
Right.
bit easier to tell.
Yeah, this is one of those questions that I get a lot in training. And sometimes it's just simply an issue with the glossary terms that come with Teams. But for anyone who's ever had the question, and I hear it a lot, how can I tell who's in a channel? Again, sometimes you have to unpack that question, but now it sounds like you're just going to be able to hover your mouse over any channel that's visible and get some quick at a glance information. And I think you're absolutely right, Scott. If you build channels and you don't even bother putting in a description for the channel, hopefully this will make it one of
Yeah.
those moments where you want to retroactively go back and add those descriptions and make sure
And
people know
I
the
think we've
purpose of
talked
them.
about this on the show before. Is one of my biggest pet peeves when I was an administrator or working with teams was people that stood up anything with a name and that was it. And then when you go back to look at it in 10 years, is you don't know what the purpose of some of these security groups were, channels, or organizational units. So it's always helpful to set that. One of the interesting things I'm pulling away from it too is it says that it can do membership. Now, when it says membership, does it mean 18 people are members of this channel? Or is it actually going to go down fine enough to show you who is a member of the channel? And I think that there's some neat implications there for shared workspace channels,
Oh,
where
yeah,
will it show you outside people from your
I
organization
think
that are in
so.
that channel?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one, whenever someone says, how can I tell who's in a channel? Any standard channel is accessible to anyone who's just a
Yep.
member of the team. But when it comes down to shared channels or private channels, remember that flexes a little bit. So being able to hover over a shared channel and see, well, who outside of our team is in this channel,
And
that's
if
going to be
you're
super helpful.
And if you're a standard member of the team, but not a member of a shared workspace for whatever reason, will you actually be able to see, or same thing with a private channel, will you be able to see those hidden members? Or will it say, hey, Barry, Lewis, Tommy, Amy, they're all members of the team, plus 14 other members. And then it doesn't tell you those. And maybe it says
Yeah,
in parens like they're external channel members or external organization members. So it'd be interesting to see what this one looks like when it
I
rolls
know
out in July.
Microsoft put in screenshots so we don't have to wildly speculate how
They
this is going to help us.
they have been getting a little bit better, I've noticed,
I
but
agree.
they're
I
still
agree.
on some of like these ones where they feel a little bit more half baked, like, oh yeah, we got to get this product announcement out there from the product manager because that's who I assume a lot of the stuff
Yep.
comes from. Is maybe they just it's not far enough along yet to show. So we'll check back in when on this one as it gets closer to release, and maybe we'll have a
Yeah,
little bit more information to share.
absolutely.
All right, so next one up here is an updated message that's been on the board for a bit. And Holly, I know you're really excited about this one, so I'm going to kind of let you roll forward with it. But
I
Microsoft Teams custom emojis, MC795750, we're finally getting a long overdue Slack feature added to Teams, basically. And
yes.
I'll let you take it from there because we've got tons of screenshots on this one.
Yeah, this is one of those things where if you've worked in the Microsoft project space long enough, you know that you've maybe migrated people from Slack to Teams. You've gone into organizations to help them out. And this is probably one of the most highly requested features. So I work in the end user adoption space, and I, for years, have had to be, the crappy version of Santa that says, no, there's no custom emojis. There's some custom reactions, right? You can do more than just a thumbs up in Teams, but now soon you can add all sorts of custom little images and create a custom emoji library for your tenant.
Yep.
Now, Scott and I were discussing this early. Maybe a few alarm bells would go off for some people here. When you add a custom emoji, it adds it for everyone in your tenant, every person. So if you previously had Slack emojis that were just crazy inside joke for a few people, just know everyone's going to have access to use it. The other thing is, again, on by default, so it'll be available by default from Microsoft. Admins can go in to the messaging settings in the Teams tenant and turn that off, or you can make custom policies and only allow certain people in your organization to create custom emojis. I think this is one of those, it's just a bolster and a
Yep.
boost for any organization that has yet to move to Teams from Slack. So we're continuing to make it safer to go in that water. But two, any organization that has long since moved from Slack but has been crossing their fingers ever since. I know from past trips to Ignite that this is probably one of the most highly requested features of Teams. If you think, why are they even wasting their time on this? Just know, since Teams came on the scene, I know Microsoft has been getting asked, when will we be able to make custom emoji? And the day is upon us. So thank you, Microsoft,
Yep.
for finally answering that call and making this happen. I know it can't have been the highest priority, but it's something everyone asks for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about this, but I'm also the type of person when you give the ability to make these, will make some very funny emojis that may distract some people in meetings. And I have a feeling, and again, so this is opt out, correct? You said.
Yep.
So if you're an admin and you know that your organization may have some people like me who may abuse that feature for fun, is you may want to opt out and put some constraints on it. So you have the
Right.
ability to put people into a messaging policy group that says, these are the people that can create, these are the people that can delete.
Right.
But whatever they create will also still just be flooded out there for everybody in the
Right.
organization.
Right.
So
So think of doing things like your company logo, if you have a company
yep,
mascot, or, some different things that are really relevant to your company culture, kind of a really insider take on some of these things. I think people will really like it. So if you want to dabble in the waters that way. But like I said, if you have a hungry former Slack community who's been waiting for this feature, I would say, you know, I'll leave it to you to break the great news to everyone in
yep.
your organization. They will be so excited.
This is definitely one of those communications. You can see how many are up there too, so you can create thousands of these things. And I think that too, that you're going to have people that just keep uploading images that they don't necessarily like. And if they can't delete them, they're just going to be stuck there. So someone's probably going to, I mean, in all honesty, if you're going to turn it on and you're going to allow anyone to put them up there, you may just want to allow anyone to delete the ones that they've created. Now, I didn't see this in the announcement, so you can only delete the ones you create, right? You can't just
Right.
go and delete other people's.
Right. And it looked like there's some sort of delay, could take up to
24 hours, I
24
believe they
hours
said.
for, if you make a mistake, you upload one you don't want, you can delete it, but it could take up to 24 hours to kind of delete everywhere. But like I said, it, for some reason, whatever chaos this induced in your previous Slack environment, if it's manageable, great. You're going to have a similar experience here. But my advice would be, watch out for it, and maybe if you want to communicate it to your organization, if you have some a group of team owners, a group of people that can create teams today, you could maybe figure out who in your organization should be, the holder of the emoji creation button.
I cannot wait for me to be able to make one of myself just with like a huge grin and then just have it spread to the entire organization.
I know
Get a
there's
lot of
some,
like
I know in
pointing ones up there too.
our service desk is going to be really excited to have the ability to create what's known as the Jeb emojis. Long story, of course, it's an insider joke thing, but I foresee the return of Jeb.
Have
Um,
you seen the fun that some people have started doing with their LinkedIn profiles where because it's always in, like, that circular
yep,
frame, is they'll put a transparency effect behind their head so it looks like they're popping out of the frame. I
yep.
wonder if you'll be able to do that with these emojis as well.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious to see what this is going to look like. But like I said, I think this is sort of a try. This is the moment of triumph for people that have come from
Yeah.
Slack or yet to move from Slack. This is number one question I get from Slack users often is this. So
And
I
Microsoft has been
honestly, even
teasing
as
that
a trainer, I'm
Microsoft
excited
is
to say yes.
Yeah, Microsoft has been teasing that this has been coming for a while. Like they've been talking
I
about
know,
this for a couple of years, and I'm
a long
surprised that it's
time.
taken this long. I know that we talk about too, like I'm always excited because they made this announcement on big emojis where you can really kind of just slam those in and they show up as kind of like the hand claps or like the hearts and teams. And those haven't fully made it in. We were trying to play around before the show because the high five finally showed up, but it didn't show up for you. It only
No, I
showed up
didn't
for
see it.
me. So maybe that stuff still coming down the
It
road at
always
some
just
point,
makes its way. It
yep.
makes its way into the world. So, yeah, I think it's really exciting.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. Microsoft Teams, the notify when available feature is now live in the new Teams app. So this was a leave behind that was in the previous Teams app that had not made its way to the new ones
Mhm.
yet. As we are getting closer and closer to that July 2024 date, the classic Teams being,
Mhm.
kind of sunset, is they're getting those last few features that were remaining moved over. So for those that are unfamiliar with the feature is the notify when available feature in Teams allows you to basically right click or click the dot 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 icon on a person's chat profile and then tell me notify when available. So this can be useful for team members that have different working hours or managers
Mhm.
that want to keep track of their employees when they're logging in. Is you can basically say, hey, notify me when Bill logs on for the first time today. um, Now, I believe that this works both because this is a present setting, as it works
Mhm.
both in the Teams client and it would work online on like a phone app. So
Yep.
if someone was logging in at 11 o'clock at night to check their email or to check a message, you would actually get that notification popping up in
Yep.
your feed that, hey, so and so logged in at 11:01 p.m. So
Yep.
there's not a whole lot to talk about here. Again, this one's message center 797120, and it's already started rolling out, and it should actually already be rolled out at this point to general
Right.
availability. I checked this morning and it's there. So, but a
Excellent.
good one to know that, hey, if you were looking for this, it did roll over. Um, just a real quick share on the screenshot to see what that looks like. So again, you can kind of see there's the notify button when you click on that dot 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 menu. When someone logs in, you'll see the toast notification alerting you that Beth's now available. And then if you wanted to turn it off, is it's just a quick right click again. So you're basically subscribing to a presence notification here.
Right.
And then for whatever reason, if you wanted to go into your notifications and make some additional changes here, you can do that by going directly into the settings in Teams. And I'll blow this up a little bit here in the screenshot so it's a little bit easier to see. You basically just kind of click on notifications and then mouse over, and then you have the ability to click on manage notifications. And then on the next screenshot, it takes you in, and then it can see all of those status notifications that you're
Mhm.
subscribed to. So if you don't want to go through and click 15 different portraits to do this, you can come here and just quickly turn them
Yep.
on and off. So, I mean, I think that this is a big win. Again, this was something that was previously available. One of those things that I've definitely heard some people hemming and hawing about is like,
Yep.
hey, where is this? Like, this was available. I'd like to see it added back. And Microsoft, as we get very close up against the edge of these classic Teams retirement,
Right.
is getting those remaining features over.
Yeah, so again, even if your interpretation of this is, "Hooray, I've been waiting for that. I didn't see that in the new teams and I really miss it." Good news, it's here. But
Yep.
also, I think, the gap of feature parity is closing by the moment. So,
Yep.
for those of you that are in the new teams or trying the new teams and are still wondering, "Hey, where did this go? Why can't I do XYZ?" Microsoft is kind of dotting I's and crossing T's right now because, as Scott mentioned, Teams Classic will eventually go away and the new teams will just be teams.
Yeah.
So if this is also maybe a good idea to serve as another reminder for those of you listening and watching that classic teams, it will hit its retirement date. So start testing and trying out, make sure you're using the new teams because eventually everyone's going to be ported over into that new experience.
Last one up here, Holly. Microsoft Teams speaker recognition and attribution for all Teams room devices. So this is Message Center ID 795749 and Roadmap ID 394668. This is a change that's going to start rolling out in late July, most likely early August at this time. We can already see that it's been pushed back once. But this is really going to enhance your Microsoft Teams room devices to be able to better pick up on who is talking in the room, understand what the voice sounds like, and then pair that with the transcript. Oftentimes in rooms is you don't have your own device opened up, is it might not be able to tell who you are, but it's going to be able to do a better job of pointing that out. Um, Not a whole lot to do on this one. I know that I just helped a client roll out a Teams room device last week, but the speaker recognition, again, it's meant to correctly, which is one of the issues that I think that it had initially at rollout, is that it could not correctly do this very well. So they pulled back a little bit, but now it's supposed to be able to better help with doing that live transcription and ensuring clear and precise voice capture for every participant is happening. So
Hmm.
they do call out on here is under the what you need to do to prepare for is that this is still off by default. So that if you already haven't turned it on, be aware that it's going to be enabled for this feature. Um, Even for hardware that didn't previously support it. So
Yep.
it's off by default. It's going to get turned on. If for whatever reason you don't actually want it to be on, Microsoft provided a link here for controlling the voice recognition profile settings in
Hmm.
Teams. And I can actually share that in the show notes as well, just to make it a
Right.
little bit easier for our admins. But just be aware that this is going to start rolling out to devices. So keep an eyeball on it as we get closer to the August timeframe. And if you
Right.
need to make those changes or turn it off, or it's getting names wrong for whatever reason, is you may want to just, hone in on that and disable the feature if it's not working as
Right.
intended.
And it looks like most people, if you're going to be using this, if people in your organization are already using things like intelligent recap and you want to be able to take advantage of this, that precise pinpointing in rooms and things, everyone in your organization that wants to use this does need to set up a voice profile using the Teams desktop app. So you may have already done this. Some people may have already done this, but set up your voice profile if this, or again, work with your organization to direct people to set up their voice profile. Your voice profile is only stored for this purpose. It's not stored for any other purpose other than to know when you are talking in a meeting. Um, and the voice profile is the most important. That's the first thing that you need to do. You can't set up a face profile without a voice profile because you might be working someday with your camera off, right? So Teams won't know your face, but they'll know your voice. They'll know who it is speaking in a meeting. And it's just going to enrich not only those intelligent recaps, but same thing in those Teams rooms. We'll know who's saying what, which is pretty cool.
Yep. And to get to that too, Holly, so that's under settings, captions, and transcripts. And then it's just a quick toggle switch, correct? Anything
Yep.
additional that you need to do on it?
I don't believe so. So it'll basically ask you, it's kind of an opt-in. So once you get there, I'll just kind of do it on my side. It does say automatically identify me in meetings, captions, and transcripts. If you
Yep.
turn that on, you can do that. But I want to say that there's an additional enrollment. Um, it's something that needs to be turned on for your organization. So there is on the enrollment process when they go to in the Teams app, there's something called settings and recognition. And then they actually go through and enroll their voice and then enroll their face if they want to. If they're, and again, great for this Teams room purpose.
Yeah. So there is a PowerShell command that you need
Right,
to run in order to enable an intelligent
right,
speaker user recognition
right.
piece.
The
Um,
reason that we only have this setting for captions and transcripts to say automatically recognize me is like if I'm joining a Teams meeting from Teams, we know it's Holly. We know that this this instance is Holly. But if
Yep.
I just go sit in a room and I join the meeting and the room joined the meeting, how do we know that it's Holly sitting in the room? And if Holly's sitting with Scott, like how do we, obviously some people would be able to tell
Yep.
the difference, but if we have lots of people in there, if you use Teams rooms and this has been a challenge, ask that you flip that switch on, ask that people enroll their voice and their face if needed so that they can be picked up in those transcripts.
Thanks. And again, I'll share that for the show notes just so that it's a little bit easier to read than me just quickly scrolling through it.
Yep,
But yeah, it's not an overly complicated thing to do. You just need your admin to make sure that it's turned on. And then there'll probably be some additional user education that you'll want to do around
right.
it as well.
Absolutely. And I really think that if organizations if you use both intelligent meeting recap and you have Teams rooms, this is just this is a natural next win to
Yep.
take. So take care of it. If you don't use intelligent meeting recap, if you don't use the transcription feature as much, it maybe is not super critical, but I will tell you if you've taken advantage of intelligent meeting recap, knowing who each person is in that meeting makes all the difference. So you're going to be able to ask questions of the meeting a lot better. It's a good thing.
All right. Well, Holly, thanks again for being on the show this week.
Yeah,
That's all that we
absolutely.
have. We expected with Build and the Memorial Day weekend in the States that it will be a little bit slower from a news perspective. So that's why we took last week off and so that we could enjoy it ourselves. And Holly, so that you could travel. Because I feel like every time I talk to you, you're in a new location and I'm just sitting in like this weird rave dance hall back here.
So the life of a traveling consultant. Yeah, I had to
Yep.
come back to Minnesota for a while to recharge my accent. So
Yep.
it's real strong now before I head back to California.
Well, again, thank you for being on the show this week, Holly. And we are going to be, again, doing another podcast here a little bit later in the week, kind of getting back to that Let's Talk format. Me and Chris Strong will be breaking down Microsoft Build, all the announcements that came out of that with Power Platform, some of the AI pieces that came out of it, as well as we'll touch a little bit on some of the new hardware and some of the new features coming to Windows 11. For our listeners, again, I wanted to thank everyone for taking the opportunity to tune in and stay tuned to the channel for the next episode of the Let's Talk podcast and the future episodes of the Roadmap Rundown, where we will continue to break down the newest game-changing announcements coming to Microsoft 365, modern work, and security. If you are an organization out there that's using Microsoft 365 today, or maybe you're planning on starting to use it soon, and you need some help from a professional services or a managed services perspective, you can contact Virteva by emailing us at letstalk@virteva.com or by visiting our website at www.virteva.com. And if you've made it this far, as always, thank you again so much for listening. And please, if you haven't already, please hit those like, subscribe, and share buttons to really help us out. Thanks again and take care, everybody. Bye.